Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Ordinance Committee to order at 6:35, Tuesday, October 9th. With me, I have Councilor Lisi, Councilor Bartley, and I'm Councilor Vacan.
Motion to suspend our rules, go out of order, take number 3 off the table, and open the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So item 3 is a public hearing on a resident's petition requesting that the city council reconfigure Sunset Road to reduce traffic cutting through the street and the surrounding community, including Ashley Road.
Sure.
Thanks.
Sorry.
So as a part of this process, when we received the petition, we referred it over to the Department of Public Works, and the Department of Public Works held a public hearing on August 27th. At that public hearing, they received some input. They received input from the superintendent, Mike McManus, and they considered a variety of information, and I just want to read into the record the correspondence from them. So this was from Robert Parent, City Engineer, dated September 26th. Their Board of Public Works public hearing was on August 27th. Please be advised that the Holyoke Board of Public Works held a public hearing on Monday, August 27, 2018, to consider the following proposed road modifications. One was the installation of speed humps on Bemis Road between Route 5 and Route 141, which we will be taking up at a future date. And the other was the closure of Ashley and Sunset Roads at Route 202 Westfield Road, initially on a trial basis, and if successful, on a permanent basis. After receiving input from members of the public in attendance and from DPW staff, the Board of Public Works voted unanimously to approve these modifications subject to City Council approval. If you have any questions, I can be reached at 322-5605. So I wanted, and we have Mike McManus, our Superintendent of Public Works, here with us. Thanks, Mike. If you want to come in, because there's no room to sit out there, that would be great. We have opened the public hearing, and so you have before you the recommendation from Public Works. Throughout the public hearing, members of the public are invited to speak. We need to know your name and your address and any information that you wish to bring forth for or against the proposal or other ideas that you may wish to make known to the committee. Mike, all I did so far was read into the record what Bob had sent. So I don't know if you want to speak further to it.
Did he send it to all of us or just to you?
I'm sorry?
Did he send it to all of us or just to you?
He sent it just to me, but I thought it was coming to the council as a communication, but it did.
I think what Bob sent was a good summary of what we're proposing. And this first step is just a temporary test to see if it works. Does it meet the needs? Does it not meet the needs? Is it wanted? Is it not wanted? It's not a permanent installation.
Okay. So you have before you members of the public. I think most of you in the room now are here for this particular agenda item. So anybody who wishes to come to the microphone's right outside the gate here. You can speak in favor of their recommendation, you can speak against it, you can make other suggestions to the committee. We ask that you keep your remarks to a minute or two so that we can hear from everybody who might wish to speak. So whoever would like to come to the microphone, you can just go up to the microphone, give us your name and address. That's my understanding, to temporarily close it.
Okay. Well, I live on Sunset Road, so you're telling me I can only take the right out of my driveway. I can't go left onto 202.
Yes, is that
Yes.
microphone on? Can you just pull the switch up on the side?
How's that?
Got
There
it.
you go.
Got it, very good.
Well, it seems to me the problem is people speeding, okay? Now, they're the problem. Why don't you address them
instead of punishing the people in the neighborhood. In order for me to get onto Route 202 now, I got to get on to McMahon School, hope for a break in the line at that four-corner intersection traffic jam, wait in line to get to the light, to take a left, to go to Westfield or wherever else I want to go. And how are you going to plow Sunset Road with that Jersey barrier there? How the plow's going to turn around? They're not going to turn around. They have to plow, back all the way back, plow again, back all the way back, plow again, back all the way back. I mean,
Okay,
you know what I mean?
I hear you.
So you're punishing the wrong people. You should have, during those peak times, maybe a patrol car or something there. That probably has one ticket been handed out for speeding, you know? And almost everybody speeds by the place, you know? And what are you talking, November, December, January?
No, we were planning on doing a 2-week trial, which would commence 2 weeks from now.
Oh, okay. Because pretty soon, there's going to be traffic for the mall for Christmas, and that's going to exacerbate the problem in a big way.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
So closing those roads off, I'm just against closing the road off completely. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Paul Gabar. I live at 42 Pinchin Road. I don't know if this is something you want to do. I'm against blocking our neighborhood. Why are we going to have to pay because people who don't even live in Holyoke are cutting through or maybe going to West Holyoke? I don't know. But when you had your neighborhood meeting back in April or May at Mrs. Mitchell's, I had asked then, even whatever you decide to do this. The intersections at Pinchin and at Clayton or Kane. I suggested you paint the intersections as a whole going northbound, put the white lines in there like you did in front of the fire station. It's almost impossible for us to get out. Now, if you're going to put those barriers up, everybody in that neighborhood is going to be going to those two streets to get out. It used to be where if I go out to Homestead and I'm going to go left, I'm not going to go to the light and go that way. I'm either going straight or going right. But you can't get out. Cars are all lined up, they're backed up, and they don't even want to look at you because they know you're trying to get in. Some people are nice, they let you out. One day, just last week, I was sitting there, 6 cars who were in line, all turned left to go on to Pinchin, over Sterling, and out. And I again, if this were to happen, I guess you don't need a stop sign at Sterling. But a lot of cars come flying through Sterling. It doesn't line up with Pearson, but what happens is they just fly through there. Now, numerous times I'm coming down Pinchin, and I've gotten some nice waves from these people. Or in the summertime when the windows are down, I've heard some nice comments directed at me. So again, that's what the cut-throughs. I don't have the perfect answer here, but if you're going to do this, even if you don't, put those lines at the intersection on the northbound side. It's a simple thing to do, and I'm not saying it's going to happen all the time, but you did it on Northampton Street. And down there by Kmart, it works fairly well. I would say it works better than not. So if you did that there, I know at the time at the fire station, people do leave that open. Other times they don't.
Right.
So again, you know, whether you enforce it or whatever, but if you put it in there with a sign, keeping intersection open, and if this is what we have to do, even for 2 weeks, the whole neighborhood's got to go those ways. It's not fair to us, because now we got to go out, if we want to go out to Westfield or in that direction, you know, now we got to come all the way back out and deal with the traffic ourselves. So again, I'm not saying this is the right answer, but I think you need to do that, whether you do or you don't, is put those lines in those intersections. Now, I don't want to get into the streets that were done over there, but, you know, that's another story in itself.
Thank you.
Brian Powell, 10 Sunset Road. I'm right in the corner, right in the brunt of all of it. So, you know, I understand that you can't take the left there at the light. I take the left to go golfing out in Southwick, Westfield, I'm going to have to come around. But myself, Mr. Nault is next door to me. We're taking the brunt up there left and right because of the parking in the reservoir itself with the new no parking signs that are there. The language that's coming out that Mr. Gabala just applied to, just because we're walking in the area, the worst times are between 7 in the morning and 9 o'clock in the morning, heading from Westfield, taking the right onto Sunset Road, and heading down the neighborhood and going out onto Homestead Avenue and taking the right, heading out to the mall in that way. And in the afternoon, it's from 3:30 to 6 o'clock in the opposite direction off of McMahon School there, coming up the road onto Sunset. And they do fly. In both directions, they fly, sometimes 50, 60 miles an hour, coming down. If we, as neighbors, have taken on to driving about 5 miles an hour, stopping at the stop sign for about 2 minutes, and then taking 2 minutes to turn into our driveways, we get effed off and all of that kind of stuff and so forth. So those are the two times that if you wanted to block the roads, those would be perfect. You know, you won't have to worry about snow, everything else. If they were put in arms that opened and closed during those times, I think that would rectify the situation really, really well. The no parking signs that they have up there, they park there. They're also removing them. If you go up there, they're shaking them, so eventually you're going to go and they're going to be gone. I have one smack in the middle of my yard, so again, I'm taking the brunt of everything that's up there. Linda, we've talked about this several times, and I've talked to the neighbors about it. We don't have the panacea of stuff, but we've got to try things in order to get somewhere. To me, taking drastic measures and coming backwards is a lot harder than, hey, let's do a left-hand turn 4 minutes up there. Why can't we do that? Pretty soon, I mean, even now with the light, they're backed up 9, 10, 12 cars. We can't get out of our driveways with the parking across the street at the reservoir. But at least they would find out that they can't shorten their time by taking that left-hand turn to go out to Westfield in that way, because it's 4-minute light during those times. So it's a simple measure that could change things. I know that government moves slow, but if we could install very quickly some measures that happen and then get together and say, yeah, that really worked or that didn't, we're not going to solve the problem until we try a few things. Blocking our end is rightfully so. The other end's going to get upset because they're going to have backup at the stop sign going on to Homestead Avenue and everything else. But we got to try something, and it's got to be done quickly because it's getting worse. Might get a break because of the winter, but they want to cross-country ski up there and snowshoe up there too.
Thank you. You can come up to the microphone and give your name and address, please.
I forgot to say this.
That's okay.
How much money did you spend on that light at the end of Sunset Road? 150,000? How much?
That was part of the school
Well, I mean,
project. That was the state.
a lot of money was spent on that light. Now you block off the street and it's not even gonna be used. The only people that are gonna use that are the people from Holyoke Community College, so they can get in that long line.
Right.
I just forgot to say that.
And just by way of information for the people that have spoken so far, in the early days before that light was put up, some of you from that neighborhood met with the people from HCC, and I was at those meetings. And they did agree to participate in mitigation because it was anticipated these problems could and would likely arise. So it's not that they can't be a part of it, but what we're trying to do now is to come up with what would be helpful to the neighborhood. There's not going to be a perfect fix, and we've been talking about it in the community forum for a year. And, you know, for a good effect on one, there's a negative effect on another, but there was a consensus that people wanted to move forward to hold the public hearings, have this hearing, because there was agreement that to do nothing was going to continue to live with the circumstances as they are, and people felt that was untenable. generally speaking. But I do also want you to know that I did file an order to increase the length of stay at that light, but it is a state light. So there are certain things we have control over locally that we do not have control over otherwise. So Mike can inform us more thoroughly on that. But there were other folks who wanted to speak at the mic.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Nadine Lemke, and I live at 4 Mason Road. I'm against the barriers because the way I travel, I used Ashley Road, I would say 95% of my day. Between picking up and dropping off grandchildren, going to work, coming home from work. And I thought maybe a suggestion instead of the barriers would be like down by Blessed Sacrament, where they have the signs that say, do not take a right between 7 and 9 and 4 and 6. And same thing with going on Sterling or Pinchin or Clayton, any one of those, just to deter maybe some of the traffic. And also, if we had a policeman every so often, we've already got the sign that I don't know if anybody adheres to of the local traffic only. I never see a cop up there checking licenses to see if anybody's a local person.
Those local traffic only signs are not enforceable.
Okay.
They're
Well,
not by ordinance.
I thought maybe if, another suggestion would be the signs do not turn right or left during those certain hours.
Thank you.
John Petta, 82 Ashley Road. There's no easy answer to this, other than standing outside or parking your cars on both sides of the street instead of using your driveway to slow all the cars down. I mean, I've had, I live right there on the corner. They come around that corner, and sometimes they see me and they slow down. Don't know why. But, and it's just an ongoing problem. Maybe speed bumps, maybe turning Sunset into a one-way from them certain times of the day, which would probably be the cheapest way to do it. And, from whatever times that this is occurring, they're going to come in from 202 down Sunset. It's not as bad as them coming up from Homestead going to 202. So speed bumps and turning Sunset into one way at a particular time might be the easiest way to do it and maybe generate some cash for the city.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to be heard?
I'm James Foster. I live at 59 Ashley Road. The recommendation about the signs of the no left turn and no right turn, I believe that would be cheaper, and I believe that would be efficient for the city. And if we could get more police presence there, at least at the beginning, to keep the people from turning when they're not supposed to turn. I use that light a lot. I like coming out of Ashley, but there's times where you just can't get a break. Nobody will let you out. Even when there's a red light, they just keep going and piling up. And that light's a nice light to have, and I would hate to see that road closed off. So if we could just try signs at first and see if that works. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Judy Selesky, 23 Clayton Road. I understand the inconvenience that's going to happen with blocking off the streets. And if we're not going to do that, if the residents aren't up for that, then I really think that light needs to be a no left turn, that not just a really long wait to be able to turn left, but during certain hours, that light on Sunset and 202 needs to be a no left turn between certain hours. Linda, I think you and I have talked about that before.
Right.
And I understand it has to go through the state, so that would be, to me, the best solution, because it is correct, it is true what they said, that the worst of the traffic is when it comes from Homestead Avenue up onto 202. It flies all the way up Clayton Road. I see it flying over Sterling. They whip around O'Connell Road. In those two roads, Clayton and O'Connell, they're hills with blind corners. And one of these days, it's going to get very ugly there, and something's going to happen. You can't see because it's a blind corner. So if we're not going to do blocking off the streets, then I think that light needs to be no left turn at all between certain hours to alleviate the Homestead Avenue cutting up through the traffic.
Thank you. I'm going to let Mike speak to what we can or can't do with the light, because we have been around some of these issues more than once. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this?
Cindy Gray, 35 Pinchon Road. A follow-up to Judy's comments and Brian's comment regarding this light and the turn. I totally agree with the left, restricting the left turn. I think by the same token, in the morning, an issue is no right turn off of 202, because they're coming down Clayton and cutting over to Homestead. So I think if you do consider that, I think you have to consider both turning onto Sunset as well as coming out of Sunset for the restriction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I got here late, so I
That's
don't
okay.
know if what I have has been mentioned yet. Karen Hirschberg, 81 Ashley Road. Don't know. Can you hear me?
It's on, yes.
Okay. A lot of the people who come through there seem to be regulars, people who are on their way to work and they're coming through all the time. I've wondered if we could get an immediate benefit by a temporary closure, not at either end of the road, but on Clayton near the corner. That wouldn't make my neighbors crazy. Sorry, John. People would come flying up there, meet a barrier, and say, oh, this isn't working for me. Just a thought. I wouldn't want a permanent closure, but maybe to break the habit of some of the regulars who we see every day, in combination with changing the light with all the other things that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anyone else who wants to come to the microphone right now. I'm wondering, Mike, if you are able to respond to any of the comments, because you know I've filed orders relative to the timing of the light, the no left turn, etc. So maybe if you could give a summary to the folks as to what our local authority is.
Sure. So with the traffic signals, when they're designed before they're constructed, there's studies that are done that set the sequence of the signal. It specifies how long a green light is for, a red light is for, and different approaches, and also how it's operated. To make a change in the sequencing and the operation of a signal, we would need to reach out to DOT and ask their permission to do so. Most likely they would require another traffic study to determine what the impact would be for such a change. It's something that we can do, but it would, extend the timeline on this project. And then as far as the, no left turns during certain hours of the day, I don't want to be cynical, but it's only a sign. Doesn't mean that people are going to obey it. One of the things that we've heard is enforcement of speeding. I believe we have done traffic studies, speed studies in this neighborhood, and the studies that we didn't show that speeding was excessive. If it was, we would be looking into other traffic calming measures like speed humps or road diets, things like that, to try to control the flow and speed of traffic. It doesn't mean that nobody speeds down the road. It would just mean that the majority of people that travel on these roads do so within the speed limits of the road, which is 30 miles per hour.
So, given all the information that had been coming in over the last year, I think I've given out 4 or 5 different speed hump petitions to different people up in the neighborhood. For whatever reasons, up until now, people have felt that that wasn't a good solution for the problems going on there. So given that the other suggestion of one way came up, and that was pretty soundly rejected by people, what we have before us now is the recommendation from DPW to try something for 2 weeks to see if for the people who are most severely affected, if it would give them some relief, or if otherwise the relief was not felt and yet the more negative consequences exceeded the benefits of doing it. It's a temporary measure to try to do something to affect the area.
Right, and the comment that we heard was we need to stop people cutting through the neighborhood to bypass the light at Homestead and Westfield Road. And this is a solution to that problem.
Being at 10 Sunset Road, right at that light, I think we need to do the 2 weeks trial. One question I have, how are they going to be notified that the road is blocked off at the end? Because if they get to that, they're going to be turning around in my yard and
I
my
hear you.
driveway, and I can't get out of my driveway as it is half the time, so.
I hear you, and I did get a communication, and Mike, if you'd rather speak to it?
By all means, the communication is better worded than what I can say right now.
Okay, hang on 1 second, and I will find it. Oh, Counselor Lisi, certainly.
So thanks for coming down, Mike. If the Jersey barrier solution demonstrates itself to be an effective solution, what's the next step? Like, so the Jersey barrier is a 2-week trial run, and if that is a successful solution, what's the permanent solution thereafter? Jersey barriers on a permanent basis?
No, we wouldn't want the Jersey barriers to be a permanent solution because, well, one is aesthetics, but the other is we want a permanent solution that would allow emergency response vehicles to be able to access the neighborhood from Westfield Road. So what it would be, it could be a number of things. It could be curbing that has curb cuts for the wheelbase of a fire apparatus. It could be a sidewalk that has a driveway ramp that would allow fire apparatus to come onto the road. And then, with the sidewalk, there's a visual barrier that most people, when driving down the road, wouldn't think, I'm going to hop the sidewalk and go down Sunset to bypass the intersection at Homestead and Westfield Road. So it wouldn't be Jersey barriers. It's just that Jersey barriers are cheap and easy. It's something we can deploy easily and we can remove easily, whereas constructing these other measures would take more time and they wouldn't be as removable as a Jersey barrier.
Thank you.
And for this temporary test, we do have some concrete Jersey barriers, but we also intend to use some of the portable Jersey barriers that we have at DPW should there be a need for fire response to push them out of the way.
Thank you. So I have located the communication relative to this, and it was from you, Mike, actually. DPW has purchased 12 concrete Jersey barriers to be used to temporarily close Sunset and Ashley. We will also be renting 2 portable electronic signs to be installed on Westfield Road and Homestead Avenue for 2 weeks prior to installing the barriers to warn motorists that the roads will be closed with a starting date on these flashing signs. And that access to Westfield Road from Homestead Avenue only. In other words, the cut-through will not get you out to 202. And they've also fabricated some street signs that say no outlet to Westfield Road that would be installed at the end of Pinchin, Clayton, and Sterling Roads. Now, that is something that was done going up to the Elks because people were doing similar things there thinking they could cut through to Westfield. And so those kind of signs do help to discourage people from coming up through the neighborhood. And then it goes on to say that the notices that went out to many of you were coordinated out of Tony DeLude's office. But that's the technical aspects relative to the closure, so that there would be notice and hopefully there wouldn't be that kind of activity of the people coming up and turning around during this time. Is there, you can come back to the mic if you like, thanks. And so at this point, we're talking 2 weeks.
Correct.
Paul Gabala, 42 Pinchin Road. You know, if you're going to, as I said earlier, even if you're going to do this for a trial period or not, you have to include painting those intersections, because now you're taking the whole neighborhood, again, us paying the price, and those are our exits now. So we're going to sit there for who knows how long, because all those cars can't get through there. They're all going to be there, and they don't let you out. And a lot of us now are going to have to go out to the lights and go left. So now we're inconvenienced in that side of it. So those lines have to be part of this. Even if you don't, even if those barriers are removed, those lines have to stay there. They're needed there.
Yeah, and that's a fair point.
Is that possible?
Yeah, we can paint the don't block the box and put up signs on both
Thank
sides
you.
of the box. Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
So, Counselor? You'll have to-
Counselor Bartley?
No, you'll have to file an order to that effect. Have you filed an order to that effect? For do not block the box?
This one's pretty broad.
No, not,
The don't block the box are by ordinance.
So we'd have to file an order for that. Okay, then we'll just.
which we can do.
Yeah, for next Tuesday. Okay, just want to let the public know that.
Good point.
John Petta,
Yes.
Ashley Road. You know, the no exit from Homestead Avenue, the signs just being there, I bet you a third of the people won't go up there, even if the signs are there. Just a thought, you know, put the signs up anyway. Even if we don't do anything tonight, put the signs up that there's no exit. It's just, you know, some people do obey the traffic laws, not all of them. Like someone said, the regulars that go through there all the time, and they put their blinders on, and they don't care if the kids are walking or if there's anybody, you know, driving down the street. They don't care. They just want to go home. And you know, if you pulled up in front of their house and did donuts, they wouldn't be happy. And on a couple occasions, that could happen. But anyway, this needs to stop.
Thank you.
Judy Selesky, 23 Clayton Road. Mike, I just have a question. I think it might be for you. How was a time limit of 2 weeks determined? To me, that seems a little bit too short for we residents to create a new habit, a new traffic pattern. So I was just wondering how 2 weeks was determined to be the ideal trial period.
There's no science to the 2 weeks. It was just something we felt that we could live with. We could extend it. That would be, it's no difference to us if we extend it. We just didn't want it to be too long that it would become a permanent solution.
Right. I think this is a pilot project, if you will, hoping to avoid the error of doing something permanent that makes a bad situation in a different way worse. So I think if we can all remain in communication with each other while we try this out and see how it goes, and I'm perfectly willing to be the conduit, if you will, for the feedback, you know, and kind of keep a tally, and then we can reconvene and evaluate how the pilot program has gone.
Jim Ross Meisel, Evergreen Drive, 36. These people have a situation that is pretty tough. Your comment about limiting the light coming off of Sunset is the solution. There's probably 2 people from that neighborhood exiting to go to Westfield. 85%, 90% of the other people are outsiders. If you start making it more timely to sit at that light because it's only a 5-second, you know, a 5-second exit, that will possibly be the solution. And the barrier situation, you could put them up tomorrow, take them down in 3 weeks. In 3 weeks and 2 days, the word will be out, and so you tormented these people, this neighborhood, for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever amount of time you're going to put the barriers up for. You're going to torment them, and it's going to be right back to what's happening now. The light, this gentleman has to go to the state and ask for a 5, maybe 6-second light at that light, because like I say, 2 people at most, residents, are gonna be exiting to go to Westfield from that street. And you're gonna torment the others, and they're gonna go back to the Homestead Avenue intersection.
Thank you.
And we could, and that could provide a solution during the PM peak time, but I don't think that would fix it for the AM peak when people are taking a right onto Sunset.
Okay, if everyone,
Broken record here. Karen Hirschberg, 81 Ashley again. Have you considered, though, putting the barriers within the neighborhood where they cause less disruption of traffic flow by the neighbors, where people can get out? In other words, on Clayton or Ashley, but not out at the street, not out at
can you
Route
just
202.
clarify a little bit about where that barrier would be if, in the example that you're talking about?
Either on Clayton or Ashley, but not at the end of the street, within the neighborhood, so that people, they can't see it from 202. If you put a barrier at 202, the second it's gone, everybody going on 202 will say, oh, that barrier's gone, I can cut through again. So within the neighborhood, just to make it less convenient for them, might make them go back to going through the traffic light on Homestead.
No, we didn't really consider inside the neighborhood for the barriers.
It might be less disruptive to the people.
Could we look at that? Like, if we do the 2-week thing at the end, could we look at that in the meantime?
We could,
So that
yeah.
perhaps after the end of the 2 weeks, that might be the next
3rd week.
attempt
Sure,
I
we
mean-
could definitely do that.
as a step 2? All right. Anyone, Counselor Lacey?
Thanks. It seems, I mean, I think that Mr. Gubala brings up a good point, that you don't really have a true test within this 2-week trial period of whether the barrier is working for the neighborhood if you don't have the do not block the box. Is it possible for us to do the painting and concurrently start the process for drafting the ordinance to make that change so that the paint's on the ground before we actually adopt the ordinance?
Yeah, I mean, we can, we could have the language ready for your next meeting on
Right,
Tuesday.
we can do it
And if the body takes it up and votes on it at that meeting, then it's in the ordinances, and it would be painted before these Jersey barriers are deployed.
Yeah, I think we need a legal form to draft and just pass at the next meeting.
I'm writing the order now.
Thank you. But I think we need it in legal form, and I think that's the trick.
Well, I have to file the order first. Then we can get it in legal form.
Well, we could actually just ask for the legal form.
So the schedule in the ordinance is, I think it's streets.
Okay.
Streets that don't block the box.
Yeah, so we have to add it.
Crystal and I can get you the
We
legal
can get a
form.
jump on it, so
Yes.
we can just do it all in one step. Great. Okay. Yes, briefly.
Jim Ross, Meisel, 36 Evergreen again. Another possible solution for a PM situation is to put the barriers right on the corner of Sunset and Westfield Road, coming in only. Let the people use the light going out. That will solve the PM traffic cutting through along with the Ashley Avenue. Block off one half the road. Do not enter. Do not enter. The PM in the afternoon, so they don't come in from Westfield, cut through.
I think what the gentleman is saying.
I'm not getting which streets he's talking about.
What you're saying is change the timing of the light.
I know what Sunset is.
You're talking about barriers.
Sunset and
If you
Westfield.
put little
Right.
Jersey barriers on the end of
If you put a barrier.
Sunset and Westfield Road on one side,
Yeah.
the going inside, do not enter. The people can still.
The opposite way. We don't want them to go out, if they're coming up the neighborhood, take a left at the light.
Yes. That's the AM situation, right?
Yeah, so. All right, I think we've got it. Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Not seeing any more folks interested in adding at the moment, and we will be reconvening on this. Yes, ma'am. Excuse me, you have to go to the microphone and
Joan
give,
Petta,
excuse
82
me,
Ashley.
give your name and address and speak
Joan
to
Petta,
us.
82 Ashley Road. This is about the new paving that we had on the roads up there.
That's really not the
Well, I
purpose of this
just figured because
public
the
hearing
DPW
tonight.
was here. And I'm afraid somebody's going to get hurt on it. The gravel's all coming up. It was an experiment. And it's very, very dangerous, and it keeps coming up. And I've seen children slip, fall. Someone's going to get hurt bad.
Okay, so if we've heard all the comments pertaining to the purpose of this public hearing, which is the reconfiguration of the roads in the neighborhood to try to reduce the cutting through, which has been a chronic and severe problem for many of you in the neighborhood, which I've been hearing about for well over a year now, then what I'm hearing from DPW is that they will go forward with a short-term closure at 202. They, as step 2, will evaluate the possibility of doing a blockage further into the neighborhood, depending on the assessment of our engineers. I know I'm not one. And then we will reconvene to hear, and in the meantime, I hope I'll hear back from the neighborhood. It's worse, it's better, so that we can get some, a good sense of the feedback from throughout the neighborhood of the expected effects and then perhaps the unintended consequences. And then we can come back together and have a better idea of how to proceed. Does that sound like an accurate summary? The painting of the lines are a separate, of the do not block the intersection is a separate order that we'll have to file, but it will go hand in hand. Okay? I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much for coming down, taking an interest in the neighborhood as we work forward with these touchy, difficult situations to get our arms around. Thank you very much.
Motion to take number 1 off the table and open the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Folks, if you can meet in the hallway, thank you. Item number 1 is a public hearing for a zone change application submitted by O'Connell Properties, Inc. for the property on 522 Hampden Street, map 075, block 02, parcel 028. Holyoke MA Zone change proposal is from current zone BG to proposed zone RM.
RM20.
Oh, RM 20. So I see we have the applicant before us, so if you would like to come forth and run through your proposal, we would be happy to hear it.
Sure. My name's Andrew Crystal. I'm with O'Connell Development at 800 Kelly Way in Holyoke. And as I think everyone knows, the company sold the building that's been there since the 1800s to a local law firm. The 2 existing lots that are just to the west of the building, the purchaser was not interested in. So the first lot directly adjacent to the building is zoned business general. The next lot over is zoned residential RM20. We're seeking to rezone the business lot so that it is in keeping with the neighborhood to RM20, and if that rezoning is approved, our intent is to then file an A&R plan, approval not required, to re-subdivide those. Currently, the business lot has 80 feet of frontage, which is less than the current requirement. The residential lot has only 40 feet, which is also less than the current requirement. So combined, there's 120 feet. Our desire is to have both lots be conforming to the neighborhood, re-subdivide them so that they were both conforming with 60 feet of frontage. The way the business general lot is now, a multifamily building could be built that could house up to 5 units. Whether it's business general or RM20, that larger lot could house 5 units in a multifamily building. If we file the A&R and move the lot line, each of those then residential lots, if the zoning is approved, the rezoning, could only house 3 buildings each. So it would be a total of 8 units of multifamily between the 2 existing lots as currently zoned. If rezoned and re-subdivided, there'd be a total of 6 multifamily units between the 2 lots. Is that a little confusing? Yes.
Well, it just kind of makes me wonder why you want to bother doing it.
Excuse me?
It just makes me wonder why you want to do it if it's not very much different, that's all.
Well, it's good planning for one thing, to bring that lot into conformance with the neighborhood. And we would like to sell them. We have no intention of developing them. We want to sell them as conforming to the current zoning.
Councilor Lisi?
Thanks for coming down, Mr. Crystal. I have this map here, and I'm trying to figure out where the current BG zone is in all this, which would be the parcel that you're talking about, the rezoning.
You want me to come up?
If you don't mind.
Sure.
It helps.
Because I need to know also.
It's this one lot, okay.
Yeah, so that's a lot.
Is the building that you sold?
This odd-shaped one is the one that's sold, and that's BG. This is a separate lot. It's still owned by O'Connell. That's BG. And then there's a third residential lot here that's owned by us. So what we really want to do is re-subdivide them so the lot line is here and here, and each would have 30 feet of frontage, which is what the current zoning is.
And it would be making this RM20 zone continuous out to the corner here.
Yeah, it would make it match everything else that's that color. And then the commercial building would be the only one that's in a business zone in the residential neighborhood.
And that,
And you don't currently own this other commercial property, no?
they sold it.
That was sold. And we offered these lots to the buyers, and they didn't want them, so we're just gonna sell these building lots.
So would we not be creating a spot zone of this here? Would then become a spot zone?
It's already spot zoned.
Well, no, because that's a lot and that's contiguous, that's a budding.
But
No, those are 2 separate lots.
Right, so they're both business.
They're both
zoned.
zoned BG.
So this is not a spot zone. If you eliminate that, then you have made a spot zone.
But the whole thing is a spot zone. That's how it works. So we would, I think, ideally, and we can do this, we can grandfather the commercial lot and extend the RM20 zone to make that entire line clean. I mean, it would take a separate order, but that would be the best planning option, and it doesn't affect the current property owner because they would be grandfathered. But that's a different issue
That's
altogether.
not what we're talking about. Counselor Bartley?
I have no problem whatsoever with this application. I mean, it's really straightforward, Madam Chair. I don't see how this would negatively impact the neighborhood. It looks like while I think we're on record as saying that the planning board, I think we just, at the last meeting, we opposed whatever the planning board, so we don't necessarily go along with the planning board's recommendation. Quite often it's a moot point based upon our past votes. Planning board, we went the exact opposite of the recommendation, proudly so. But in this case, I think they're probably more right than wrong. So I would have no issues at all supporting this. But after we hear from the public, I think it would probably be
In the public hearing.
good move. Yeah.
So if there is anyone here from the public who wishes to speak in favor or in opposition to this proposed zone change, you have the
I
opportunity.
move to close the public hearing.
There's nobody here
Not
from the
seeing
public?
anyone, I have a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
With a second, all in favor?
I move to grant the petitioner's zone change.
Wait, hang on a second. We are, before we vote on zone changes, supposed to entertain the recommendation from the planning board. I would just remind the committee. And on a timely note, it has been delivered to us as we're sitting here, dated tonight. Dear Councilor Bacon, regarding recommendation of BG to RM20 at 522 Hampden Street. Dear Councilor Bacon, please be advised that at its October 9th, 2018 meeting, the Holyoke Planning Board discussed the above referenced zone change request. After consideration of all information and testimony presented during the public hearing, the board voted 4-0 to recommend to the Ordinance Committee of the City Council that the zoning map change request be approved. The board found that the proposed zone change was appropriate as the new residential zone for this parcel will be compatible with the surrounding built environment and enhance the zoning uniformity in the area. The board noted that there was no public opposition to the zone change. If you have any questions regarding this decision, please feel free to contact me. Very truly yours, Eileen Reagan, Chairman, Pro Tempore.
So I'll just
of the
renew,
Holyoke
I'll just
Planning
renew my
Board.
motion to
Okay.
grant the petitioner's zone change application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion to take number 2 off the table and open the public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 2 is a public hearing for the application from Rise Holdings, Inc. for a special permit for a registered marijuana dispensary located at 130 Race Street. We'd be happy to hear your application.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair and Councilors. My name is Tony Signoli. I'm pinch hitting tonight for Attorney Jack Farrader. And though I'm not a resident of Holyoke, I live at 50 Ohio Avenue in West Springfield. I have the good fortune to spend a lot of time here, especially in your restaurants. And I've worked extensively with GTI and Rise in Holyoke for more than the last 2 years. We've brought out quite a team with us this evening to answer any questions that you might have. I'd like to introduce some of the team this evening. We have Adam Robbins, Rise's Market Development Manager. We have Andy Bone, landscape professional from Place Alliance. Chris Farley, architect from Kuhn Riddle. Matt Yee, Rise Operations Manager. And we also have attorney David Burson of Bacon Wilson. The Rise team has had numerous meetings with the Planning Department and other Holyoke City departments regarding Rise's proposal for a recreational marijuana dispensary at 130 Race Street. We're very grateful to the Economic and Planning Director, Marcus Moretto, and his team, as well as the City Engineer, the Holyoke Police Chief, the Police Department, especially Captain Matthew Moriarty, among others in government, for helping this work in progress to become the plan that's before you this evening. Adam Robbins will speak for us first this evening. He joins us tonight from Chicago, but he has been omnipresent here in Holyoke since GTI, Rise, first came to Holyoke to become a member of the community. Rise is already well known in the community as a contributor to community and civic events and efforts. Rise is very proud to be a great corporate citizen in Holyoke and be part of the city's future. We look forward to making another substantial investment in the city of Holyoke as they have done on Appleton Street. After Adam Robbins speaks, Andy and Chris, the team's landscape and architect professionals, will walk us through this application. We're very eager to answer any and all of your questions and to listen to your thoughts about this project. We deeply appreciate your time and your consideration this evening. So, Adam Robbins.
Thank you. Adam Robbins, Chicago, Illinois, market manager with GTI Rise Holdings. I'll be really brief. Tony covered a lot of things, and I know we have a long night ahead of us, but we are here proposing a recreational marijuana retail establishment at 130 Race Street. We see this as an opportunity in a couple different facets. We see it as an opportunity to bring safe, thoughtful, and regulated cannabis to the city of Holyoke. And we see an opportunity to take a vacant building and vacant land and revitalize it and bring it back into the fold of the redevelopment that's happening on Race Street. we've been here for roughly 2 years on and off. We've started our operations at our RMD, our Registered Marijuana Dispensary at 28 Appleton in April. And since then, I know a concern for the city council and for the community at large has been local hiring. To date, we've hired 35 employees, 10 of which are from Holyoke. 3 or 4, I don't have the number in front of me, or the actual plan in front of me, are from wards 1 and 2. And so we take hiring, we take local preferential treatment very seriously. And to Tony's point, we are here to be good corporate stewards. We want to be an active part of the community, the business community, the wards, the lower wards. And I guess with that, I'll introduce maybe Chris Farley first to talk about the actual building plan, and then after Andy Bone to talk about the actual site plan. So we have some easels. Would you like them to bring it up in front?
If I may make the applicant aware that the committee has received approximately a 6-page communication from our planning department this evening. So to the extent that you can address the things that are in here, which I doubt any of us have had time to read, it would be helpful.
I read it.
Okay. Whatever works for the general audience.
It would actually be better if it were offset so that the public can see it too, if they're watching from home or the video.
I think they are controlling the camera downstairs so they can make sure people see what's in the room.
Is it okay to present from here, or should I?
Why don't you go get the mic?
You can use that mic,
One of the mics
just
there.
turn that one on. As long as the green light is on, you're live on the mic. There you go.
I'm live.
And you can pick it up if it's easier.
I'm gonna give this a shot from here and see if I can do it. So thank you very much. My name is Andrew Bone. I'm a principal landscape architect with Place Alliance. I run the Amherst office. The project here in front of you today is at 130 Ray Street, which is delineated here on the corner of Ray Street and Middle Street. There's currently an existing vacant building and adjacent parcels surrounding it that are vacant with no structures on it today. The proposed plan here is to rehabilitate the building, and Chris Farley from Kuhn Riddle will go over the interior structure of the building. The proposal here is to rework the alleyway to a dedicated parking lot adjacent to the building with an existing sally port. There'll be 7 car spots on this side with 3 spots on this side and one dedicated ADA space. We're proposing to wrap the streetscape around Middle Street on this half block, resurface the alleyway, and that will provide the vehicular traffic circulation to the parking lot. There's associated landscape associated with this. We have some screening, we have some low screenings, shrubs, and then taller deciduous trees. So everything kind of in between, above knee and below 8 feet will be a clear view into that. The proposed lighting, we have supplied a photometric plan. So the new streetscape along Middle Street will have the same continuation of the newly constructed streetscape along Ray Street, so that will kind of wrap the building. We have 2 proposed period-centric acorn lights for there. Then we have some internal streetscape lighting for the parking lot. It's a little bit lower in elevation, as well as at the sally port. And then the ADA walkway and pedestrian circulation out to Ray Street to the main entrance of the building here has a pedestrian bollard light. I think with that, I will hand it over to Chris, and then I can answer any follow-up questions associated with the site design.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Farley. I'm an architect with Kuhn Riddle Architects from Amherst. So the first drawing we have here is a building plan. It's an unusually shaped building. It's triangular. At the bottom here is Race Street, and on the left here is Middle Street. The intention is, in terms of the overall building appearance, is to maintain the outside really very much in its current state in terms of openings. There'll be new windows put on the outside. There'll be a new main entry put here in the front. It's currently a window opening that will be enlarged to be a door opening. That'll be the public entry on Race Street. On the side here on Middle Street, this is an existing double door opening which will be maintained. That'll be a staff entry. And then on this southwest corner, there is an existing opening here as well, and this will be maintained as the delivery entry. There'll be an enclosure, the Sally Port enclosure here in the southwest corner of the building. There'll be an overhead door here for a vehicle to enter. The fence will be a black chain link fence, 8 feet high, and it will have black vinyl security slats to provide some screening and some privacy in terms of what's happening inside. There are a couple of windows that really are not historic, and to the extent that it's possible, the intent is to try to bring back some of the original window openings, particularly on this is currently a new rectangular double hung window. We'd like to restore that to the original size and location. There's a diagram here that shows security camera coverage. That's the green and the yellow. There'll be several different kinds of security cameras all around the building to provide complete security visibility around the building.
Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, Mr. Farley, the security cameras?
Yes.
Where will they be directed? Well, let me put it another way. Are they directed at the street? Are they directed just at the building?
There are two different kinds of cameras. The yellow and the green are what are called bullet cameras, which are more directed, and they are directed along the face of the buildings. And then these blue dots here, those are 360 or 180 degree cameras. So that provides a much broader view of not only the building facade, but the street, sidewalk and the street. So there's two different kinds of coverage for the security.
And then the cameras will, I presume, record, and then I presume they're going to be saved for a period of time, and
I think,
what do we have for details on that?
My understanding is that they will be saved for some period of time. I think I would 90 days. So there'll be recordings kept for 90 days.
Okay, and the security plan is reviewed and approved by Holyoke Police Department?
As of April 24th, we have
I'm just saying this now, so I don't know if these are new plans, or these plans have already been submitted to HPD as written, as developed?
Correct. These plans have been submitted. There's also an interior plan that's more detailed that the police chief and the police station has that is not for the view of the public, that talks a little more about the interior security, which is a little more confidential. But yes, they have reviewed it and signed off.
Great. And then just on the fence height, it's my understanding that Holyoke ordinances are 6 feet. So we have some kind of a variance, I presume, that's been approved by?
We went before the planning board this evening before we came here.
Okay.
And we presented to the planning board.
Is that what this is?
I believe I heard that that was approved,
No.
the 8-foot fence was approved this evening.
8-foot fence was approved, okay. You?
And we have some exterior building elevations. So here is the front elevation of the building. There's a series of windows going across the front. This is currently a window, very similar to this one, a 3-pane window. That's going to be converted into a door with side lights, maintain the existing transom window above. That'll be the main entry into the retail portion of the building. There'll be a new sign above that door entry, the Rise logo. This is the Middle Street elevation. This is an existing double door, which will be a double door opening that'll be maintained, new doors put in for the staff entry. And then this is the hypotenuse of the triangle. This is the long end of the building, showing the security fence and the overhead vehicular door. This is directly from alleyway, looking at that same space. There'll be a couple of other small signs on the building. This one, employees only, will be mounted here to the side of the building next to the employee entrance, and authorized vehicles and staff only. That will be installed on the security fence next to the overhead vehicular door. We have a couple of different kinds of lights that'll be building mounted. We have a series of downcast cylinders on the front of the building to help illuminate the front of the building and the main entry. We have flanking cylinders, downcast cylinders on either side of the staff entry. And then we have two downcast cylinders to mark the vehicular entrance as well. And then in the front, there are 2 sign lights, outrigger sign lights, to light the main Rise sign above the entry.
Just Mr. Mr. Is it Mr. Your last name again, Andy? Bone. B-O-H-N? B-O-H-N-E. B-O-H-N-E, okay. Mr. Bone, you resurfacing the alleyway?
Correct.
So who granted you permission to do that?
The alleyway, I believe, is owned by the individual lots. It has an easement.
Halfway, right, so each abutter.
Correct, each abutter backs onto half of the alley.
Marcos, do you want to explain this to me? Because alleyway rights are unique area law, and I don't quite get it myself. So
you are correct. The alleyways are owned up to the halfway point. In this case, Rise owns both sides. Right now, they have site control of both sides of the alleyway. So they would own both sides of the alleyway.
okay, so and then, but the city of Holyoke can use that alley.
Correct. So an alleyway only needs to remain open and unobstructed. So similar to just on the same block on the other side, the Cubit building, for example, they own both sides of the alleyway. They repave it so it can be used for circulation as long as it's open and unobstructed. So if the city, water department, sewer department has to go in, HG&E, they can.
Got it. Thank you.
All set?
For now, yeah.
Counselor Lisi?
Thank you. Just to that point, I thought we received an email at some point today. I can't find it, from Bob Parent about the easements and the need to come before the DPW in order to access the resurfacing and other amendments that were going to be made.
I was thinking of this one from before.
Yes, that was sent on Friday afternoon. Those are 2 items that can run concurrently or after the special permit. One of them is stormwater. So the amount of paving on the site is just over 2,000 square feet. So it needs minor review from the city engineer and Board of Public Works approval just to make sure that they are managing stormwater the right way. The second thing is technically there would be an encroachment on the right-of-way by the design in the form of the staircase on the northern side of the building towards the sidewalk. Now, it's actually a smaller encroachment than what exists there. If anyone's familiar with the building, there's a very large wooden structure on what would normally be a sidewalk. There's just not a sidewalk there. This project would be taking down that whole structure and just keeping a small portion of a stair to access the building. So that is just something that comes before the Board of Public Works.
Mm-hmm. So I think in the interest of clarity, I would just read it's a brief communication, so I read it into the record. It said that DPW has reviewed the additional information received by the city clerk on October 1st relative to this application. And it says, 1, based on the information shown on SP2 Site Improvement and Layout Plan, this project will require a permit from the Holyoke Stormwater Authority. No stormwater-related information has been provided at this time. Review and comment on stormwater-related issues will be deferred until such time as an application for a stormwater permit from the authority and supporting information has been received. And 2, relative to the encroachment, it states, it appears that the applicant intends to construct an existing stairway encroachment into the Middle Street right-of-way. Application for an encroachment permit from the DPW will be required if this is the case. And it's signed by Robert Parent, the engineer. So that's what they'll be looking for. Thank you.
And just to the chair, so, I mean, we can
Stipulate.
add those as conditions to the permit that they,
Similar to the water one we did.
well, I hope we'll just add the regular conditions that we generally have added to everybody else's, so.
Councilor Lisi?
Thank you. I have some questions about, I believe it's called the Dollyport.
Sallyport.
Sallyport.
Dollywood.
So I hear you talking about, it's a wire or a chain link fence?
Yes.
And there's going to be vinyl strips to create coverage?
They're vinyl slats that they get slid in vertically to provide some amount of screening and privacy for what happens behind the fence.
And is it covered? Is that area covered? No, so it's open to the elements?
It's open air.
And then how is the overhead door port attached to that?
The fence ends at either side of the overhead door. The overhead door has its own structural steel columns that get
buried,
sunk into concrete in the ground, and that supports a roller up above and then the tracks on the side. So the overhead door is pretty much a freestanding structure that the fence then just gets installed up to.
And this has been approved and part of the security plan in terms of entrance, egress, and the security for it seems like a flimsy structure from a layperson's perspective. So I'm just wondering if that meets the security needs that the police department is laying out. Thank you, Marco. Sorry.
The enclosure is a very similar enclosure that's at the Appleton Street facility. So it has, it's a pretty bulky structure on its own, but this was something that was reviewed by the Holyoke Police Department, and they requested that it go from a 6-foot fence to the 8-foot height.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down, Marcos. I'm wondering if you could just run through anything that we should be I'm sorry?
Is outstanding.
Yes, because I haven't had chance to thoroughly read.
No, there's no way you could, and,
know.
and so I would actually start with an apology. It's a kind of unique situation that we were in. Normally, we turn around comments within 2 weeks. In this case, while there was an application, and go into the answer to Dave Bartley's questions on the alleyway, there's a dimension to this project, which is there's a land deal with the redevelopment authority. So with my redevelopment authority's hat on, I had suggested some changes to the alignment of the parking lot. based on the scope of their development. So that caused the applicant to change the application even after the public hearing had been heard. So by the time we got the application, we had a very limited timeline. So normally you would get this by the Friday before. So this is me falling on my sword. We felt that it was better to have a complete set of comments to you by today and be here in person to assure you on whatever it is that we got done by today. So with that being said, most of these comments are actually either standard comments that we would have normally with any applicant, and so we wanted to provide the transparency into that. And at least 10 of them is really addressing, the plan changed, but there were some sections in the narrative that was still referencing the former design, which had a parking space at the, kind of like the lot was at the corner of Middle and Main Street, but really not a big deal. It's just something that can be changed and filed with the clerk's office for posterity. So that's the bulk of the comments. There's really 4 items that, probably the applicant can even address today. They're kind of embarrassingly simple. We've only had, pretty much 2 days, Thursday and Friday, to go back and forth with the applicant, a little bit this morning, but yesterday was a holiday. So I could roll those out right now if you wanted.
What I'm most interested in is, anything that's material and anything that would be something we might want to list under the conditions.
Well,
to just be sure if things are happening later.
Sure.
Sort of like what we just talked about from DPW.
So from a site design perspective, 2 things concretely. They've indicated that they will be providing a bike rack, but it's not clear on the plan where that's being provided. So if that's something that they can update. And then lighting, I know that verbally we've discussed this with the applicant, and they've written that down, that they will be, as you can see in the plan, providing a new sidewalk on the northern side of the building. It seems like they will also be providing pedestrian scale lighting, which is in the character of the canal walk design. It just wasn't clearly defined whether that was lighting in the legend or not. So if the applicant can just state whether that is lighting, then it would be clear. But this is the kind of stuff that we would just clarify in the back and forth over the weeks before hearing.
Okay. And so other than that, everything else is pretty routine.
We had a question about trips to the site. Adam Robbins actually clarified it for me outside, which is how they were calculating that. It was about 200 trips, and they're counting that as a trip in and out. And then just seeking clarity on how they were going to get the dumpster truck into the site and out of the site. And I believe Adam said that they would be rolling the dumpster out towards the dumpster truck. Those were the significant remaining questions.
Are there any other questions by Councilor Lacey?
I have a question. Since this is a new location and a new application, is there an additional host community agreement that has been signed for this project?
No, they're host. Yes, for the recreational there is.
Yes, we have a separate host community agreement for the adult use.
For the adult use.
For this site, correct.
Right. The prior one only captures the
medicinal.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's still
'Cause
applicable.
That's all we had
And
at
it's still
the time.
applicable. Yeah.
Yes.
That was all we had at the time.
Yes.
Do we have it?
Do we have that in the packet?
I don't see.
I didn't see it in this packet that's from the end of August.
I don't believe so, but we can provide it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a fully executed one?
Yes, correct.
And just to spoil the surprise, it's exactly the same as all the others.
The new boilerplate that's
Yes.
circulating.
Are you all set?
I am all set, thanks.
Councilor Bartley, did you have other?
Well, I don't know what the pleasure of the committee is, so I don't know if we're, we've got some outstanding, I don't think they're insurmountable hurdles on even the planning board letter. So I'd be of the opinion that we can move this along, subject to all the conditions, that these get resolved, and along with the Board of Public Works gets resolved, and that the regular conditions we've imposed upon every other applicant be added to their special permit, regardless of whether they're the host community agreement, because the host community agreement I've seen is, should be improved upon. So that's why I'd like to have our regular standard conditions.
That we did with the last
With
one that we
everyone
approved.
else, every other permit has had the same conditions.
So if we can suspend rules, I just want to ask Crystal a question relative to that.
Motion to allow law department to speak.
Is there a second?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Crystal, I just want to know, can we reference those without having to list them specifically tonight?
I think you have to list them just like every other one. I mean,
All right,
I
well,
can
then let
certainly
me
hunt them down,
Let me
but
find my last agenda then.
just to make it even across the board.
Because I don't have that in my head. If the committee is wanting to move
Well, that's just,
on this tonight,
well, that's
we'll
just
have
me.
to
I mean, I don't
pull.
know.
Well, I mean, I guess.
No, I
really,
agree.
are there
There's
other
no
questions
insurmountable.
relative
In this letter, I don't think there's
to it.
anything particularly taxing to the applicant, other than the Holyoke property tax, but that's taxing, but, you know.
Well, it's not new construction, look at it that way. Hang on. Okay. I have the list of the conditions.
Madam Chair,
from
you're
our
the-
October
you're the greatest.
2nd city council meeting. So,
Well, Madam Chair, Madam Chair,
yes.
did you want to allow the public to, before we get into it too much?
Well, if you want to get this in the record, we can, or either way is
Well,
fine.
well,
But
you're
if there are
alternating.
members of the public who wish to speak in favor or in opposition to this special permit, if you would come to the microphone, give us your name and address and any comments you'd like to make. Not seeing any. So I think we're safe to proceed. So I'm going to read into the record for conditions that would go with the recommendation relative to the special permit. 1, that the owner of the building always pay commercial property tax rate to the extent allowed by federal, state, and local laws for the duration of the special permit. 2, that the business retain a minimum of 30% Holyoke residents for non-security jobs. That hiring preference be given to security personnel that are retired Holyoke police or are a retired member of another police department that now lives in the city of Holyoke. 4, that there be no marijuana recreational or consumption to be allowed on site. 5, that there be no deliveries of recreational or medical marijuana from the site. Well, it would only be recreational in this case. 2, individual homes, residences, or people. 6, that the hours of operation be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday. Now, 7 was a unique condition to the other special permit. So our number 7 would be that the applicant complies with the letter of October 4th and the 2 recommendations put forth by the Department of Public Works. And that would be our 7th condition relative to this special permit. Are there any, Councilor Bartley?
And I guess the 8th condition would be relative to the planning board's letter dated October 9th, that whatever the issues
Do we
pointed
have
out.
that in front of us?
That's what we're just going, I think that's what Marcos was.
Yeah, that's the letter that you
the
got this afternoon.
6-page.
I mean, if
What?
you're taking suggestions, just be updating the project narrative and be
Okay,
filed
so-
with the clerk's office.
So,
Well, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I've only skimmed this twice. I mean, I guess what I've seen in here, I think they're all fairly innocuous issues, so.
so do you want to put it as a condition that the remaining open issues be completed relative to the October 9th letter?
Boy, that's perfect. That's
Okay.
why you're the chair.
So that would be item 9. Okay? Is that agreeable to the applicant?
Yes.
That way we can escape if we missed a sentence or a dotted I or a crossed T. We're all on the same page.
Madam Chair, I'd like to, gentlemen, do you want to say anything else before I make my motion? Mr. Signoli?
I think we're fine. We appreciate the opportunity to work for it.
Okay. Mr. Morero, did you want anything else?
I was just wondering if the hearing was closed or not.
Well, I'm about to
We
make
have-
that,
Okay,
I'm about to
all
make
right,
that
gotcha.
motion.
Well,
I was just trying to follow. Okay, thanks.
Now, as we received an law department opinion last week, we can still hear from department heads relative, even though we've closed the public hearing. So we've,
No, I'm all set. I just want to make sure I
but
knew.
as
what
far
was
as the
being-
proponents are concerned,
we just wanted to make
or
sure we didn't forget to close
or
it.
opponents are concerned,
I just didn't know what I was hearing. Yeah.
right, so,
We're getting there.
okay, so I don't really see anybody. Well, I'm going to move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye, and I'm going to move that we grant a special permit subject to the aforementioned conditions that the chair lady were spelled out.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for coming down and
Thank you very
answering
much.
all these questions.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, motion to take number 4 off the table for a brief discussion, I guess.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 4, filed by Councilor Bartley, that the City of Holyoke consider for passage the following ordinance. No person shall erect or maintain upon its property a fence, tree, shrub, bush, or other vegetation which interferes unreasonably with the view of motorists, and any order from the city engineer for the partial or total removal of such fence, tree, shrub, bush, or other vegetation shall be complied with forthwith. Councilor Bartley?
Oh, yeah, so under discussion, this is something for consideration for right now. I don't necessarily want to put it into legal form, but I wanted to get it before the body now. If you, this is verbiage that I work with, compliant with the city, our new city engineer. And this is, I mean, it could be a little bit controversial, and I understand that completely, but it's really all about public safety. So when motorists are coming to the head of a street where it runs perpendicular into a main thoroughfare, and you have to edge out further and further into the roadway because there's trees or shrubberies or something like that blocking the view of the motorist, it becomes a public safety concern. So language similar to this is passed in other municipalities that in this area. I don't know which one, but you know, Bob and I kind of worked on this together to come up with something palatable that we could maybe use as a foundation to put into legal form. The controversial part, of course, is if there is really something that's impacting motorist views on private property. Well, that's when it gets controversial, doesn't it? Because, but I will say this: we had great success. This body passed. I think it's 97 Hitchcock. It's where Westfield Road, where Hitchcock Street runs into Westfield Road. And it's kind of a bendy area. There was a big accident about a year and a half ago. Because the sight line, when you're at the top of Hitchcock Street looking left is fine, but looking right, it was really screened out because of those shrubberies. Well, we were able to work with the property owner, and Mr. and Mrs. property owner were fine with us removing all that. So they understood it. But is that going to be the case every time? And that's where I wanted this to be for consideration. I'm not going to press the accelerator for this because I know this would be controversial, but it would allow the city officials to at least knock on the door of the homeowner and say, for your consideration, would you think about cutting back the bushes? Otherwise, we have this potential ordinance in place where we can force you to do it. So that's again, that's all I'll say for now. That's the thinking.
Councilor Lisi?
Councilor Burgos Anderson. President Burgos had his hand up first.
I know there's an ordinance where we're allowed to have a fence so high, and there are shrubs particularly in my neighborhood, that are actually higher than that. Isn't there an ordinance that would limit how high your shrubs can go? Because this shrub is like the highest I've ever seen. It's like a tree. I'm just wondering if there is. If not, this would be perfect.
Counselor Bartley?
So I appreciate that, Madam Chair, thank you, just through the chair. So, yes, Juan, well, yes, we looked at it, and no, it doesn't exist in Holyoke Ordinance Code at this point, that's why this would come into play. But this language is kind of a combination of a few other communities where Bob really did some due diligence based upon my order, and I know he's looked at East Hampton and Ludlow, and I think a third community as well, and he's kind of combined it into this. This needs a lot of massaging, I think, for sure. And again, there's no way I want to impact private property rights. We've talked about this a million times here, so I don't want to do that. But in the interest of public safety, when there really is a I mean, the one that comes to mind is on, I don't want to say a street because I don't want the property owner to get mad at me, but it's in Ward 3, and the street runs directly into Northampton Street, and when you peak, when you're at the stop sign, you cannot possibly see because of Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner's bushes. You can't see up the road, so you have to inch out to the roadway. And further you go out, the more of a risk it is to you, the motorist. So, at any rate, I just want to have the discussion here, and maybe after you consider it, look at a few streets in the various wards, and to think if it makes sense, we could maybe take it up in a month or two. When that was really the point. Right now.
Councilor Lisi?
Thank you. So, I think what's at odds here, yes, it's the private property rights, but also. I'm going to assume that any fence, tree, shrub, bush, or other vegetation which is standing up somewhere is also within the zoning ordinances and land use of that property, the setbacks, and et cetera. So I think we would need to, of course, I think there would need to be some sort of like fine structure if they're not complying with, but I also think there needs to be an appeal process or some sort of like, demonstration of hardship that it cannot be removed because, again, ostensibly people are putting things on their property that are within the codes. So we'll go from there.
My only comment would be, I'm sure there's a lot of homes that have really old trees that got a lot bigger from the time the people bought the house to the current event. So I think there might be a lot of grandfathering involved, but that's just a comment.
I really like the idea of Councilor Lisi's the appeal process. Again, I don't want to be dropping hammers on people, but I like that aspect. We would have an appeal process. And then I also like the thought of whether it's within existing setbacks, because I'm going to suggest that probably the ones that I'm thinking of are not within the proper setback. So that might be another avenue which to say to the city engineer that once we bring it to his attention, that is this within the city setback, but with a setback. So, and then as far as trees and other vegetation, that's a huge concern. That's a major concern. And do you want to drop that burden of cutting down, spending $1,000 to cut down a tree? I mean, no, I don't. But so I think this is just on a very narrowly used, and I wouldn't want this to be kind of a, wiping out vegetation and all that because, one person can't see. But I think some of these are really dangerous, and it's just would give the city of Holyoke just a way to mitigate it. But just it's for consideration now, and if the body doesn't want to do it, then fine, but just really just.
And we could perhaps even come up with a definition for the level of intersection. Traffic on
I think that's, I think the points that you and Rebecca and Juana made, I think they're all great points. They're all great points. I hadn't thought of them, but they make a lot of sense.
At the end of the day, this is public safety. It's a public safety issue. It really is. Because the shrubs that I'm looking at, it's very dangerous. I can't see anybody coming around the corner. If somebody's with a baby carriage, you can't even see it. So much so that it's on the sidewalk. You have to like basically walk off the sidewalk, go around the
I think
corner.
that's a different issue, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. It should be included then. I don't think you can obstruct the sidewalk with your bushes. I think that's a different issue. And I think we actually do have an ordinance for that.